Navigating Arkansas family law as a non-custodial parent, yeah, it can feel completely overwhelming. There's a ton of legal jargon, strict rules, and obviously the stakes are incredibly high. But hey, that's exactly why we're here today. We're going to transform what often feels like a super stressful legal maze into a clear, manageable roadmap. Consider this explainer your dedicated resource guide. We're covering your rights, your responsibilities, exactly how support is calculated, and what you absolutely need to know about custody laws right here in Arkansas.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've built today's roadmap around 5 main pillars. 1. Roles, rights, and responsibilities. 2. Custody versus child support. 3. Calculating your support obligation. 4. Enforcement and paying support. And finally, number 5, modifying custody and support when life inevitably changes.
So, starting things off with pillar number 1, roles, rights, and responsibilities. Let's set the stage for exactly where you stand in the eyes of Arkansas law. First off, let's define what the state actually means by non-custodial parent. Simply put, this is the parent who doesn't primarily live with the child day to day, but who still holds a profound legal responsibility to provide financial and medical support. Now, you might be wondering about the Office of Child Support Enforcement, or OCSE. There's a huge misconception here. A lot of people think the OCSE represents the custodial parent, but actually, they don't. OCSE caseworkers and attorneys represent the state's interest in making sure children are supported. They literally do not represent either individual parent. Knowing your legal baseline is honestly your best defense. You've got rights, right? Like the right to review your child support order every 3 years, or if your income changes by 20%. You also have the right to completely transparent payment info. But on the flip side, you have absolute duties. You have to pay the ordered support. You have to attend all court appearances, and you must notify OCSE immediately if you move, change jobs, or your income changes. Trust me, ignoring their notices will only make the situation so much worse. I know, reading through all these legal obligations can feel a bit cold and bureaucratic, but let's take a breath for a second and look at why this whole system exists. By providing child and medical support, you're doing way more than just checking a box on a court order. You're actively helping to provide for your child's day-to-day needs. You're building their future. And really, that's the ultimate goal of this entire system, your child's well-being. Let's move on to pillar 2, custody versus child support. This one is huge, folks. Probably the biggest point of friction in the entire co-parenting experience. In Arkansas law, there is a hard, absolute legal line drawn right between visitation rights and financial obligations. These two things are entirely separate. So what does this actually mean for you? Well, it means the custodial parent legally cannot deny you your court-ordered time with your child just because you fell behind on support. And conversely, and this is absolutely crucial, if you are being denied visitation, you absolutely cannot stop paying your child support in retaliation. No way. Doing that is a massive, costly legal mistake. If your visitation is blocked, you still have to pay, and you'll just need to address that visitation issue through the courts. Moving right along to our third pillar, let's demystify the financials. How exactly does the state of Arkansas calculate your support obligation? The philosophy behind Arkansas's math is actually pretty simple. Children should receive the exact same proportion of parental income that they would have gotten if both parents were still living together under one roof. Back in 2020, Arkansas shifted to what's called the income shares model. Basically, this means the courts now look at the combined gross income of both parents rather than just pointing the finger at the non-custodial parent's net income. There's a legal precedent for this called Purnell v. OCSE, and it breaks this complex math down into 4 logical steps. Step 1, the court figures out the combined gross income of both parents. Step 2, they take that big combined number and check the Arkansas Family Support Chart to find the base level of support for however many kids you have. Step 3, they add in allowed monthly child-rearing expenses, things like health insurance premiums and childcare. And finally, Step 4, they calculate your pro rata share. So if you make 60% of the combined household income, you're generally going to be responsible for 60% of that total support obligation. It really makes the math a whole lot more balanced. And once again, while it's super easy to get bogged down in all the calculators, percentages, and gross incomes, we've got to remember where those dollars actually go. Those calculated numbers, they translate directly into a roof over your kid's head, food on their table, and clothes on their back. It's the very literal, practical application of supporting your child. All right, that brings us to our 4th pillar, enforcement and paying support. Let's talk about the reality of how these payments happen and the power behind the state's enforcement system. So here's a really crucial point. If your child support is being taken directly out of your paycheck, please know that this is not a punishment. It's called income withholding, and honestly, state and federal laws actually require it when a parent is employed. It's simply the standard everyday legal process for handling these payments. It just ensures consistency for the child and, frankly, makes it more convenient for the parents. Now, if you fall behind or worse, try to dodge the system, the state's enforcement tools are pretty intense. OCSE can suspend your driver's license, your professional license, even your recreational licenses. They can place liens on your property, intercept your tax refunds, block your passport, the whole shebang. And ultimately, you could be found in contempt of court and potentially face real jail time. This is exactly why burying your head in the sand and avoiding OCSE notices is literally the worst thing you can do.
And get this, here is a surprising fact that catches so many people completely off guard. If you fall behind on your payments, Arkansas law actually allows interest to accrue on that unpaid child support debt at a rate of 10% annually. 10%! That interest just gets added straight to your total debt if the custodial party or a state agency requests it. So ignoring the problem literally makes it grow by 10% every single year. Yikes. Okay, let's move on to our fifth and final pillar, modifying custody and support. Life is unpredictable, and the law does have ways to account for big life changes.
Listen up, because one of the most dangerous traps parents fall into is making these informal handshake agreements with each other to change support amounts or swap custody days. An informal agreement does not protect you legally at all. To actually modify an order in Arkansas, you have to prove two things to a judge. First, there needs to be a material change in circumstances, like, say, a 20% jump or drop in either party's gross income. Second, you have to prove that this change is in the best interest of the child, which means looking at things like home stability. Until a judge officially signs a brand new order, you are strictly responsible for the original amount. Another huge milestone is, of course, your child growing up. In Arkansas, the legal age of emancipation is 18. Generally speaking, your ongoing duty to pay current child support automatically ends when they turn 18. But there is a specific timeline you need to watch. If your 18-year-old is still in high school, that support continues until they graduate, or until the end of the school year after they turn 19, whichever comes first. Oh, and a quick reminder, if you owe any past due debt when your kid emancipates, those payments will absolutely continue until every last cent is paid off. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is a massive, fairly recent shift in Arkansas custody law. Legislation has actually created a rebuttable presumption that joint custody is in the best interest of the child. This is a real game changer. The courts now actively favor arrangements that maximize the amount of time each parent gets to spend with their child, unless there's clear evidence that joint custody would be harmful, in cases of domestic violence or severe instability. The state essentially wants you involved in your child's life as a totally equal partner. Which brings us to the most important question of this entire explainer. Are you ready to take an active role in your child's future? As we've seen, fighting or avoiding the child support system only leads to escalating penalties and crazy 10% interest rates. But we've also seen that the law genuinely favors your involvement, your time, and shared custody. By staying informed, communicating proactively with OCSE, and formally modifying orders when life throws you a curveball, you can stop fighting the system and start focusing entirely on what actually matters, your kid. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Take ownership of your journey, and I'll catch you next time.